Yeah. Now, so I just want to do something. Are you trying to get it out? Agency and very
from Transition Nelson, to Bridget Sanders, who is sitting over by the coffee machine. I should have mentioned earlier that we've created several other sculptures. This one in front of us, Bridget and I have done together. This is about intergenerational equity. So you've got the adult in the middle and then the two children on the sides. Okay, the strength of the adult on the stones, and then these fragile children with the eggshells. So this is about our responsibility to our children. And Bridget has also done a piece called the prayer tree, which is over on the other side. If you all turn around and have a look, there's a beautiful tree there. You need to go in and have a close-up look to see what's involved there. It's beautiful. So thank you to Bridget for being involved, and to Tish, another art student who's got a piece with gnomes in the corner there. And I'm sure there's people I've forgotten to thank, but I'll pass you over to these guys now. Thank you.
It's a window of opportunity to fight for the environment, because in December our government will join countries across the world to negotiate the 67th Kyoto Protocol in Copenhagen, Denmark. This gives us 6 months to convince our government to dare to be serious about tackling climate change.
Recent studies show that 350 parts per million is the maximum safe level of carbon dioxide that we can have in our atmosphere. We are currently 37 parts per million over this limit, and it's rising rapidly. The Copenhagen conference may be the last chance that we have to slow the snowball effects of human-induced climate change. We, the students of Nelson and Tasman, challenge you to lobby our government to turn the tide.
Visit 350.org for more details about how you can take action, or sign up the petitions over there the Green Party organised about lobbying our government and campaign for much needed action. Check out our demonstration. We've got a demonstration at 1 PM outside Starbucks and Farmers, and it's a mystery, so you'll see what it's about when you go there. And we think this powerful art exhibition, together with all these committed young people that we've seen in the past 2 days, show us that there is hope and that we can make change both in Nelson and in Copenhagen.
In the words of Captain Planet, the power is yours.
My name is Sean Weaver. I've got the privilege of being Joe Campbell's husband. And Joe's asked me to talk. I'm also a lecturer in environmental studies at Victoria University, and do a lot of climate change teaching, and I also have done quite a lot of policy work and policy research in the climate change area, and I have a company that does climate policy and carbon markets consulting. And the reason why I'm working on climate change is because I've been involved in environmental issues for the last 20 years or so, a bit more, since about 1986 or so. And after a while, about 5 years ago or so, I realised that climate change really is the very biggest issue, environmental issue, that I've ever come across. In fact, it seems to block out the sun compared with every other issue I've ever worked on. All of the efforts that I've ever put into biodiversity protection, for example, can be undone through climate change. The big extinction events in the world's history are climate events. The dinosaurs died out principally because of a climate event. And the climate event that we're experiencing at the moment is one that promises to cause an awful lot of biodiversity loss globally. So the key thing, I suppose, that I want to get across today, well, there's two things. One is the urgency of this issue. I'm on the Royal Society Climate Committee, and that's a committee made up of climate scientists in New Zealand that have one distinguishing characteristic, and that is that they know what they're talking about, and also they're very worried about this issue. And the scale of concern is bringing itself into focus with this agreement in Copenhagen in December that we're trying to get to. What we're trying to get to is the next agreement after Kyoto. The Kyoto Protocol is the very first step to try and help us engage in emission reductions, to use carbon markets as a way to escalate those emission reductions in different countries. But one of the biggest challenges with the Kyoto Protocol is that the cap on global emissions that we established in Kyoto it's nowhere near enough to tackle the problem of climate change. We need to get a global cap which is much more robust, a much bigger cap, in other words, much deeper emission cuts, and that is really what the Copenhagen Agreement is all about, is what will be the global cap that will determine the extent to which carbon markets can be used as a tool to combat climate change. The key message here is that negative environmental messages don't tend to elicit very much in the way of motivating responses to action. And I think if you look at the history of the environmental movement and the language that's been used over the last 30 or 40 years or so, you'll see many negative messages of shame and guilt and anger. And this installation that Joe's done is based on an emotion that is, I think, a much more powerful emotion as a basis for bringing about much larger change and bringing about much greater unity. And this is a positive emotion of hope. And I think this is a very powerful and a very relevant theme to be bringing to this issue. So I hope that you and I can all continue in our efforts to have the courage to take larger efforts, and don't underestimate the effect that we can have as individuals, either in a small scale or on a large scale. The biggest changes in history have usually been brought about by significant minorities, not by majorities, so don't be afraid of being a significant minority in this great effort to combat climate change. I'd like to now call upon Trevor to speak on behalf of the Transition Towns Nelson to say a few words to you. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon everyone, and thank you for coming along to this event. The feature-length documentary, The Earth Whisperer Tonight. The great news for tonight is it's sold out already, but it will be starting at State Cinema 6 from tomorrow onwards. So, and that's featuring one of our own local heroes, which is Craig Popping himself. And one of the heroes programs of when it is available, when the movie is showing, over the next few days. Great to see from the latest New Zealand Shape survey that most, or the majority of New Zealanders believe that the government isn't doing enough on climate change, and a great way to show or demonstrate that is to sign either the Oxfam New Zealand or the Greenpeace campaign, and over on the Transition Nelson tables over here, you can sign up to that, and it'd be great to get as many signatures as we can. And we're very happy to go with presentations to organisations, so sit down and send it. It's great to see
Yeah, I'm like, this is
New Zealand,
hand, dudes.
700 organisations.